This CD is kind of like a launch into a direction we've never been to before.
We started thinking about what should we do next as a band.
This record is very interesting, very intricate.
We wanted this to be a limitless project. Pretending to Run, the song, is actually the first song that we wrote for the album, and it just expanded from that initial idea. Chris and I usually at the beginning of the album try to get together and see what each other has. And we early on got together at Chris's house, and we were going through all different kinds of ideas, and he left to go talk to his son or do something, and when he came back I was noodling on this idea that I'd had, and he was like, "Hey, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's just this thing I'm messing around with, let's move on to other stuff." And he said, "No, that's really cool, we should definitely do something with that."
The Pretending to Run story was always about a guy that suffers a betrayal or some kind of traumatic event. It's not just an entirely doom and gloom story, but a journey that most of us experience in real life. We kept always evaluating if it was working, so that it just wasn't the first 8 or so songs we started with. We thought, well, if this is what the character is thinking or feeling, and he's going here, is that too big of a jump? Do we need to gradually bring him to another place, or does he need to go back in time and contemplate certain events that led to kind of that traumatic event that kicks the whole album off? We end up having essentially one song spread over 2 albums as certain musical themes come back and reprise, and other little musical motifs you'll hear pop up in 5 or 6 different songs as it represents where the central character's mindset happens to be. One of the instrumentals is voir dire, which means to tell the truth. And I actually latched onto that when I had jury duty. And if you've had jury duty, you know that there's a bunch of you, and if you get selected, they ask you a bunch of questions to see whether they want you on a jury or not. And that's called the voir dire, to tell the truth. Another song is fait accompli, which means it's a done deal. You can't change the outcome of what's happening. So that was kind of the trigger for me to think about certain spoken word phrases that could tie the whole story together without having it to be described in the lyrics. We can't have a 75-minute CD. We've painted ourselves into a corner. Either we leave some songs off, release them later, or we grab a couple more songs and make it into an actual double album.
It's just exploding into, one disc isn't going to hold it. We're going to have to expand out.
It didn't start out as a 2 CD concept album. It organically grew to that.
It just starts to snowball and expand.
It started out as one song that grew to half an album, that grew to a full album.